Hey guys, welcome for anybody who is here. We're going to get rolling here in about a minute or two. This evening's guest is Tim Jordan from PrivateLabelLegion.com and Hickory-Flats.com. Tim, I appreciate you being here tonight, man. Thank you for taking the time out.
Glad to be here. Thanks for setting this up. If guys like you weren't doing this, then we couldn't talk to people, and it'd be a travesty. So
Exactly. Everybody, like I said, we're going to give everybody another minute or two to get rolling. We're going to keep this to exactly an hour tonight. Tim has another one of these going on at 9 o'clock Eastern time, but we're going to get to pick Tim's brain for a little bit, and of course there will be a replay if anybody can't stay the whole time. So let us know you can hear us. Say hi. Let us know where you're from, and we'll get rolling here in about 1 minute. I guess while we are waiting to get started, what was the weather like in New Orleans? Was it nice and hot and sticky?
yeah, I mean, it's New Orleans. It's hot and sticky. The Amazon actually did an amazing job with the venue. It was this it's called World of Mardi Gras. It's like this old port warehouse right on the Mississippi River, but of course you're right on the Mississippi River, so it was humid and hot. And yesterday morning it got really warm and rained for about 5 minutes, and then turned really, really sunny. So everybody was walking around with swamp tail all day, and there was 1,800 people there, which is pretty massive. That's the biggest single packed room I've ever been in. Well, maybe not. Well, Amazon specific. I've been to some other conferences like at IRCE that were pretty crowded, but for Amazon specifically, it was pretty loaded up. But yeah, hot, sticky, but good times all around.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. All right. Hey, Jana, how's it going? All right. So we're going to let people trickle in. We're going to get this thing rolling. Again, for those of you just getting here, tonight's guest is Tim Jordan. He runs PrivateLabelLegion.com. They have a great Facebook group, the Private Label Legion. He also has a business called Hickory Flats. And again, I appreciate you being here, man. Let's dig right in. What's your backstory? What got you into Amazon? Tell us everything.
So I've always been kind of an entrepreneur, but usually misplaced. I've had some companies that were either labor heavy, like construction, that would run for a few years, and I'd sell those, or some other things. But I ended up landing my dream job as a full-time firefighter and EMT, and something I always wanted to do. And our shift schedule would be 24 hours on shift, and then we'd be off for 48. So we worked 2 days a week. And of course, we all had side jobs. Well, I ended up working part-time but full-time for a government supplier, a supplier for government contracts. And I was their business development guy. And what we did was procurement and logistics for overseas State Department operations. So essentially, if somebody needed something at Kandahar Air Base, in the Middle East, a container full of oil filters for generators, that was my job, was to get them procured and shipped over. And one day I'm going through a catalog of over 1,000 wholesale accounts, not just items or brands, but accounts. And we had some huge ones, stuff that nobody can get access to. And I'd look, and something that I was paying $3 for was selling on Amazon for $30. And I thought, this is interesting. So I literally put a Craigslist ad out and said, hey, if anybody knows anything about selling on Amazon or eBay, hit me up. So I ended up with this guy that he ended up being like a FBA type coach. And he came in, looked at my catalog, and went, holy cow, you got something here. So within our first year, we were easily at 7 figures. And that was pretty exciting. But I quickly realized that of all the kind of the FBA style e-com businesses out there, I wanted to get into something that nobody could take away from me. So I dabbled in RA and OA just a little bit, but then I really stretched my wings on the wholesale. And then from there determined that I wanted to get into private label. And private label is interesting for me because I didn't go the traditional route. I didn't have to go through Alibaba and those online sourcing sites that so many people have problems with, because I actually had already been doing business in China. So I had contacts, and I had logistics systems in place, and I had, they call them hounds, the guys that go around and find stuff for you. And so I started loading up a product here and there and did really, really well. And as other people were kind of watching what I was doing, and I'm a pretty good networker, people would say, hey, can you find me this product, or can you stick your pallet of stuff with, or my pallet of stuff in with your container? And I'd say, sure. So the business Hickory Flats kind of evolved from that. And what we do is kind of the hands-on work for private label sellers and brand owners. So if you need something sourced, you need something shipped, those traditional methods of Alibaba and Upwork sourcing agents and all that kind of shady stuff, typically shady stuff, I go on and on stories of that. We actually handle it with boots on the ground in offices in both locations. We understand how the process works. And when I formed the company, the U.S. corporation, with my Chinese business partners, 50% owners. So we are literally co-owned equally between Chinese and U.S. folks. And then we have actual staff and offices in both countries. And we just last year opened up an office with full-time staff in Central America, which is actually really cool, because we found out, and I can get more into that later, but one of the ways to do well with launching a brand is to tell a story. And a lot of times you can tell that story with the sourcing, basically the location, or the way you sell it. So think of like Tom's shoes. The Tom's shoes are cheap $1 pair of canvas shoes, but people pay $60 for them because they have that story, buy a pair, give a pair. So we try to link up brand owners and manufacturers with products that can be made in Central America and tell a story around their brand. And of course, we're helping the folks down there in an underdeveloped country. So that's how Hickory Flats got started. From there, I started doing a lot of networking, going to a lot of conferences. I travel constantly here in the U.S. And as I'm meeting people and I'm sharing my slightly different philosophy on private label and e-commerce in general, I realize there's a lot of people that think like I do, and there's a lot of people that are frustrated with bad information. And that can be said about anything, you know, anything e-commerce related, whether it's building Shopify store or doing RA or OA or wholesale. If you're doing RA successfully, you know that there's a way to do it, but you see people all the time, hey, buy my course and I'll teach you how to do it. And you're like, that's garbage. That's not how that works. So since we were kind of focusing on private label, I said, hey, let's kind of form a community based on just good content. And there's no right way of doing this. What works for me may not work for you. And basically, it's just a group of entrepreneurs that understands that eventually we need to be focusing on something that we can have our own, that we don't have to be platform dependent on Amazon. And the only way, in my opinion, to really do that is to start having your own products, whether you call it private label or private products or your own brand, whatever it is. So that's how Private Label Legion got started. So if you're listening to this, go to privatelabellegion.com. And we've got kind of a quick intro video on there that kind of gives the mentality of what we're doing. And then scroll to the bottom of that. You can opt into the email for updates. There's a subscribe button for the YouTube channel. Go ahead and smash that button, because we are almost daily putting up new free content related to anything and everything e-com. And then there's also a page there for the Facebook group Private Label Legion. And of course, you can search that on Facebook and join that community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I would suggest you guys do that. I've dropped a link in the chat. The Facebook group is outstanding. I haven't had enough time to go through YouTube, but I did subscribe, and there's some really great stuff in there. That's fascinating. So you kind of fell into it backwards a little bit, which is cool. I think that's great.
Yeah, definitely a different perspective coming in at the direction that I did.
Absolutely. And I guess if you guys didn't catch one of the things he said, there was what I think is an important point about being able to tell a brand story. As RA and OA sellers, you never have to think about that. It's just scan, list, ship to Amazon, and let it sell. But being able to tell a powerful brand story is really one of the reasons I think a lot of us buy what we do buy and follow the people we do follow on social media, is because they are able to communicate values and then share that with you either through a course or a product. So yeah, that's really, really awesome. So talk a little bit about choosing a private label product and what goes into properly entering a niche, or picking a product that has a higher chance of winning, I guess.
So I'm going to get on my soapbox here. If I get fired up and start pacing around the room, just calm me down. the reason that I think that this discussion is important, I understand that most of this audience is going to be RAOA, and that's tremendous because there's a lot of people making money and it's their side hustle or it's their primary job, and this is great. It's allowing people a tremendous amount of freedom and to get their feet wet in entrepreneurship. If you're doing it and you're making any money, I urge you to be thinking about diversifying, because we all know that times change. And while you can make money doing RA and OA right now, and especially wholesale, it's not the same as it was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, people were talking about selling books on Amazon. Everybody's run away from that, got too saturated. And I think that one of these days, the folks that are doing very well in RA are going to be struggling. And it might be 3 years from now, it might be 5 years from now, it might be 6 months, because RA is almost 100% dependent on Amazon. Now, I know you can stretch some of that stuff out to different platforms, but think about like the affiliate guys, the affiliate marketers that years ago were crushing on Amazon. They woke up one day to an email that said, hey, we've cut all your affiliates in half. That's everybody's salary just went half. And Amazon, as we know, has had some ups and downs for especially arbitrage folks, whether it's accepting receipts or not accepting receipts, or brand gating, not brand gating. It's frustrating. And one of the things that Hickory Flats does is we have a prep center and warehouse here in the U.S., and we do a lot of prep. So I get to see this because we have lots of RA customers too. And it's very frustrating for them when they buy a bunch of products that are clear, and then the next day they find out, the day it lands at our warehouse, we can't ship it in. They find out, oh, they just put a restriction on this. So while you're chugging along in your RA, OA, your wholesale, take a percentage of your effort and energy and be at least looking into private label, private product, building a brand, something, because I am absolutely convinced, I know there's a lot of people disagree with me, absolutely convinced that if you're not aiming that way, then you're going to get behind, and eventually the methods that are working now for selling on Amazon are going to change. And whether it's Amazon changing or the methods changing, if you build your own brand, you have your own private product, then the platform doesn't matter, right? Think about RA, you're dependent on Amazon. But if you have your own product, you can sell it anywhere. I have products that are selling in subscription boxes. We're selling them wholesale to other people. We just tell them you can't sell in e-com, but they want our stuff. And it's because we started building a brand. We threw a little bit of Instagram stuff out there, and then our clients actually loved the stuff enough that they started, promoting our stuff for us kind of organically. So if you're dabbling in private label, or if you're looking at private label, understand that the methods that worked 2 or 3 years ago do not work anymore. Absolutely do not. And I have this little saying that it takes more than a sticker. And what I mean is, let me back up. A few years ago, I was at a conference in Seattle, a mile from the Amazon headquarters. And I'm sitting around this round table and with a bunch of people that are thinking about getting into private label. And this woman says, what is private label? And this loudmouth know-it-all says, oh, that's when you buy something off Alibaba and you put your own sticker on it. And already I wanted to crawl across the table and slap this guy's jaw off, because I'm like, no, you are part of the problem. This is not what it is. And what I see right now are mountains and mountains and mountains of people getting into private label, following the same habits, following the same tactics, and losing their tails and getting discouraged and getting frustrated. And it's not pretty. And the few successes you do see, a lot of times are blown up out of proportion. The hype men that get up and say, oh, it's so easy. Well, look at their motivation, because a lot of them are promoting this idea because they're a consultant or something. So just kind of weed through the chaff. That's really a lot of the reason private label agent got started. So what I've determined is the majority of the private label methods out there, and let me back up and say this. I've done the 7-figure thing on Amazon, sold my first business, right? I've got other stuff going on private label that's rocking it in ways that nobody is talking about, the methods and stuff. So, I kind of have this unique perspective from my experience, but also because I've helped hundreds of private label sellers. So every day we see the sourcing inquiries, we see the shipping inquiries, we see what's on boats and ships and moving, and people are launching. So I get to see all this. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that the majority of private label tactics get you in a position where you play follow the leader. And following the leader is never good. And let me explain that. The first time that I watched, a webinar on private label, it started out with the same thing you guys have seen. Go to a niche, go to a sub niche, hit Jungle Scout. Pull up Jungle Scout and find where other people are selling a lot of this item and see if, there's only 6 listings, let's say. If there's only 6 listings, you can get and be number 7. Well, here's the problem with that. You're basically basing your decisions on what product you're going to launch on what other people are doing well. If they're already doing it well, you've got a lot of uphill ground to gain. And initially, you used to be able to do this very easily. You would start off with, well, if my listing was better, if I optimized better, if I had better pictures. Guys, that was like 3 years ago. That's old. That's like 28 years in Amazon years, right? That's old news. Everybody knows this. Like the days of just over-optimizing are pretty much over on an already saturated product. You can't do it. And here's the other thing. Everybody else is using that same software. Everybody else is using the same methods. They're seeing the same data. They're seeing the same products. And they're falling into this death gap. All right, I call it the 6-month death gap. And let me explain that. It takes about 6 months to really launch a private label product. From the time you start looking at the product, and it takes you a couple weeks of following that data and starting to get comfortable. Reaching out to suppliers, getting your samples shipped over there in hand, reaching back out to them, placing an order, they produce the order, they ship the order. This might be a small test order. Then you want a bigger production. You do your custom packaging. You know, I see people go through this whole thing, and really to do a private label product well, not just a brand, but a private label product is about a 6-month process before you get it launched and rolling, okay? Well, the problem is, let's say that somebody started, here's day 1, here's the end of 6 months. They've started this process. Until it gets to the very end, you're not going to see them on Amazon, right? They probably won't even have their listing live. Well, if you come in 5.5 months too late, you're starting right before they finish. So if you start here, you've got 6 months left to go. So there's a 6-month death gap where the data is skewed, guys. It is skewed. And these validation tools are coming out and saying, this is a great product. There's high demand, not very many sellers. But that software can't track it. So I do things like check Alibaba. Like I found a correlation between the number of Alibaba listings to let me know how much demand there is on Alibaba, because the demand on Alibaba, basically the demand on Alibaba is there months before those sellers are really rock and rolling on Amazon, because they can see this traffic. So there's tools to search Alibaba, just like we have doing search volume. So Chinese manufacturers can see what people are searching for. So I actually use tools like that through my Chinese team, and I can tell you right now what's going to be the next big private label item, what everybody's going to be saturated in. I can tell you right now the products that people have on the water and have been sourcing that are already saturated, and they don't know it because there's that 6-month gap. So I'll get off my soapbox, but that 6-month gap is real. And the reason people are falling into it is they're putting too much dependence on existing sales from other people and the methods using software as validation. Now, I use software, and I'll get into that more, but I don't just let it cheat for me, right? This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. This isn't a life hack. You can't do private label the easy way, I like to say. So what I like to do are find products that are not yet on Amazon. And I know everybody says, holy cow, how do you do that? Guys, only 10% of the world's products are even on e-commerce platforms. And Amazon's big, but it's not even the biggest. So there's a lot of products out there that are not on Amazon, and I've launched several of those that just weren't there. Or if they weren't there, or if they were there, it was a terrible presence. They might have one page or one listing on page 70 of a keyword, and it's not selling anything, right? So if I check that in the validation tools and software, it's going to say it's a 1-star item, or don't do this. This isn't. And I'm jumping up and down, because now I'm seeing where I'm not going to have competition on this for a long time, because all the software says it's bad. And I had to find it off of Amazon. I didn't find it in those first sub-niche, category searches. And I'm using online and offline resources for that. So I came up with this method of basically getting ideas away from Amazon and then going back to Amazon and determining 2 things. Search volume. How many people are searching for this product? Well, 3 things. Search volume. How many people are searching for this product? That's very important. And I use tools like Helium 10, Scope, Merchant Words, and you can get an idea of how many people are searching for it. Now, those are estimates. They're good estimates, but I average those, and then I'll clarify that a little bit more down the road. But search volume, competition. If I find something that has high search volume but 1 or 2 listings, or literally, guys, I find stuff with 0 listings, or an item that should be $15, retail price, but I'm seeing it on, coming from drop shipping from another website, and the listing says $150. Well, I know that's not going to give me, accurate data, so of course I'm not worried about them. The third thing that I check is pay-per-click. So typically what I'll do if I really want to know if something's being searched hard, I use pay-per-click data mining to give me two things, impression numbers and also cost per click, which gives me a really good indicator of my competition. So let's say that, all right, let me grab my prop. So I've got these giraffes that I got from Africa a few years ago when I was in Kenya. So if I find this on a site like Etsy, and I'm like, wow, those are really cool. This hand-carved out of one piece of wood giraffe, and it's on Etsy. And I look on Etsy, and the guy that's selling this has sold a lot of them. He's got 400 reviews of his product. Wow, he makes a lot of giraffes, right? But he's also gotten enough sales where 400 people have actually reviewed it, and they're good reviews. Then I go to Amazon and look for this. If this is not on Amazon, I'm jumping up and down because there's obviously a product that people want. And then all I have to do is go to Etsy and buy 5 of them. I just buy 5 of them from Etsy. And now I've got a unique ASIN, right? It's not my product, but Amazon doesn't care if it's your product. They care if it's a unique ASIN. So now I'll just throw up a listing with a couple cell phone pictures, very short time, and run a manual pay-per-click campaign on the keywords that I think people would use to find this. So if the keywords are giraffe sculpture, hand-carved giraffe, 3 giraffe desk ornament, bookend, like I would just type in a bunch of stuff and see what comes up, right? So then what I can do is I can run that ad, and I'm going to jack up the price a little bit higher than I would normally sell at because you want to be above your competition to get a true impression number, but I'm going to bid $2 on those keywords, right? Now what I do is I run that for a week, and I get my impression count. As long as nobody is outbidding you for that keyword, and I'll tell you how to tell that in a second, then you should be getting thrown up every time someone searches that. So again, it's not perfect, but I take that number of impressions and compare it to the averages that I got in my other software. And now I really have a very solid idea of how many people a month, a week, a day, whatever I average it out, are searching for that product. But by doing the pay-per-click data mining, I've got some other information too, and that's my cost per click. So I said that I'll bid up to $2. Well, let's say that all of my bids, I was having to actually pay $150 for all my clicks. Or I'm not $150, $150. Well, that means that somebody else is bidding $145 or $140, which tells me there's a lot of competition for those keywords. These might not be a good product because even though that product's not there, if I can't sell it on the keywords I need to, it's going to be tough. Better yet, I've got a lot of impressions. And when I say a lot, I don't mean as much as some of that saturated stuff you need. I don't need 20,000 impressions a month. If there isn't this on Amazon and there's very little like it, and I'm getting 600 impressions a month, I'm jumping up and down because that's 600 people searching for a product that I can get the #1 spot for the search results for because there's really not any relevant products like it, right? So now what I do is I check my cost per click. And if my cost per click is 20 cents or 30 cents, it means nobody's bidding on it. So now I'm really getting excited because the software says it's a crap idea. Etsy and I've got other places are telling me, hey, people are actually buying this. I check search volume and see that people are actually searching for it. And then I can test it and see that, yes, people are searching for it and my cost per click is low. So now I'm going to launch something that doesn't need a boost. It doesn't need a big launch. I don't have to do all this crazy stuff, with the giveaways and the coupon codes because people are searching for it. They'll find it. And it is not uncommon for us to launch a product. And my business partner called me up in 2 weeks. Hey, we're on page 1. I'll say, awesome. What slot? Well, we're number 2 slot. I'm like, all right, how many giveaway? We didn't give away any. We just ran a cheap pay-per-click campaign and we got some sales. And that's so different than what people are telling you guys. People are out there saying, hey, you need something that's getting 100,000 search results and you want to get on page 20. You got to give away 90 items in 7 days with this extreme coupon code and get the pay for review thing. Like, that's hard. And it doesn't work. I've got this, what's it called? This principle I call the rocket principle, right? So imagine the Saturn V rocket that took man to the moon, right? At the time and up until recently when Saturn's got a newer rocket, it was the most powerful engine in the world. Well, think about how much it took to put that together. Years of engineering, decades of science. Think of the material, the manpower. Think of the amount of fuel, tremendous amount of fuel they had to pump into that thing, right? They fire that sucker off, and it is this enormous machine, goes barreling away from gravity and gets up into orbit, right? And as it's going, it's losing, segments of the rocket, and it's burning up all that fuel, stuff you'll never get back. Well, what happens? It all falls back down to Earth. It always does. Unless you're a space station, and even some of those fall back to Earth, rockets always fall back to Earth. They can't maintain that. So they've spent a tremendous amount of energy and engineering and labor, and that's what we do, guys. That's what we're doing when we launch private label products, is we're spending a large amount of fuel, which is our money, right? Whether that's for giveaways or pay-per-click costs or something. We're spending a tremendous amount of stress and energy and engineering and, which zone jumper or, Thomason or whatever site I'm going to use. And we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this launch. But generally speaking, if it's not a unique product that's high in demand, it's going to fall back down. And I see it time and time again. So what you're doing is you're organically getting up there, but you don't have enough oomph to stay there. And the reason is because you're trying to compete on saturated products. You're trying to compete on products that if you've got to give away 100 in a week to get that ranking, you've got to maintain that to keep that ranking, right? You're competing with people with hundreds of reviews. Guys, you're not going to stay there. And I see people get so frustrated. I did this launch and I fell back down. Well, it's probably because you're falling into that whole rocket principle of spending all that fuel and energy and exertion, but it's going to come back down. And then there's another problem. There's two problems. There's us, there's your competitors, and we're doing the same thing. We're launching rockets right back to back behind you, right? Constant rocket launches. So now what you're doing is you're all using the same methods to fight for the same thing. You're competing with each other. You're knocking each other back down off the pedestal. The second thing is Amazon. Amazon is jacking up launches, guys. About 4 weeks ago, people started freaking out over the algorithm change. People still don't know where that's going to land. The algorithm with ranking, not just BSR, I hate BSR, just page ranking, like search result ranking for certain keywords or long tail keywords, is changing drastically. And it started about 4 weeks ago. People that were on page 1 were on page 9. People on page 30 were on page 1. They couldn't figure it out. The correlation on the page results was not matching BSR. And people freaking out. Well, Amazon eventually leaked out, hey, we're changing this algorithm because we need to make this more customer focused, right? Like we can't let people hack the system. And the other thing they did about that same time was started deleting reviews in mass. Now, we all know the review situation, right? You used to be able to give away a product in exchange for an unbiased and fair review. Those started getting slashed. Up until recently, what people were doing, I was doing it. I presumably may have been doing it, was paying people for reviews, right? So you would get someone that's unassociated with you on social media or whatever to buy your product, and then you would pay them back plus extra, usually via PayPal, and Amazon couldn't track that. Amazon knew they couldn't track it, but here's the thing. Amazon's not just getting pressure from the consumer. Amazon's getting pressured from the government. Remember, that's why all this review stuff started happening. Is that I think it's the SEC came out and said, or some sort of consumer protection agency, I can't remember which one, said, hey, by manipulating reviews, you're manipulating the customer unfairly. And it didn't just happen with us. It happened with Yelp and all these other sites where these pay for review stuff. And what they determined was, federal judge determined you cannot do this because by allowing that manipulation, you're manipulating purchases, which is not fair to the consumer. So Amazon now has said, here's how we're going to fix the review thing. And what they did is they said, we're going to take averages in a category. So in health and beauty, let's say, I know nothing about health and beauty really, so I'm using it as an example. I'm probably off my numbers. Let's say in health and beauty on a new product or a private label product or a brand, they're averaging receiving 3 organic reviews for 100 products sold. So 3 of the products sold get a review. Well, what they'll do is they'll go check your listing, and if you've got 500 units sold in a period of time, but you've got 41 reviews, the math doesn't add up. And they say, oh, okay, they got some reviews organically. Let's just start cutting them. And what they do is determine that if you sold 500 items, you should have 15 reviews. So they just leave you with 15. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. They split it up. And, I get to spend a lot of time with the real brainiacs and the guru in this industry that have access to Amazon. And I actually got a couple weeks ago to sit with an Amazon employee that was kind of telling me, yeah, we don't even know exactly what happened, but this is what we've determined. And a lot of people in the industry have gone out and actually done the math and figured out their sales, figured out how many reviews are left. And they agree. They said, hey, we're pretty sure this is what happened. And it makes sense because that's the way Amazon can control this, right? So my point is, when you're trying these inorganic, these I won't say false launches because they are launches, but the manipulation to rank higher than maybe you should, Amazon's crushing you. They're changing the algorithm and they're changing the review system. Now, personally, I love it. I absolutely love it, because what this does is it puts the burden on us as brand owners and private labelers to make sure that we are actually treating our customer right, which is what we have to do. We have to do that by having a unique product at a good price, good value, right? Good customer experience. We can't sell the same old bullcrap garlic press in a white box with a sticker on it and rank up high and make money doing that anymore, guys. It does not work. And the private label game is really getting saturated with those old school methods. And guys, I have that bird's eye view. I see it. I'm telling you, it does not work. But I can tell you with a certainty there are new ways of doing things that are actually working. So why does this all matter, guys? If you're just coming in, you just got here, I'll say it again. If you're doing RA, OA, wholesale, you're making money, you have some capital to invest and some time and energy, and you understand how Amazon works and how Seller Central works and how the game works, be investing some time and energy in getting your own brands up there for the long haul, because long term you're going to need that. It's going to be absolutely essential and necessary. But make sure that you're not following those old methods. Follow these new methods. So again, what I do is I find products away from Amazon, and then I figured if there's demand on Amazon with low competition, then I launch it. Is every one of them a rating success? No. We sell some items that are not sexy. You know, they might be, I don't know, as an example, shower curtains. Shower curtains aren't fancy, but everybody buys them. Mm-hmm. They're not sexy. They're not beautiful, but everybody's got to buy shower curtains, right? And there's a lot of different varieties of stuff to buy. You know, people want different patterns, and they're seasonal and all that good stuff. And I might not be selling 200 of one item in a day, but if I sell 3 or 4 a day, and I didn't have to spend a tremendous amount of money to get into it, and my profit margins are good, and I can do that with 20 listings, guys, you're rocking and rolling. You're hitting that 7-figure pure private label thing pretty quick. And if you're not doing the real popular stuff, you stay under the radar of your competition. So what I do is I'll find products that start selling, and then I'll start researching that niche. And if I can add complementary products, I start building out a brand, build that brand into a catalog. And usually you need about 10 or 12 items to actually have a catalog, which is where I now take the leap off of Amazon. Generally, sometimes I'll take some leaps before. So like, guys, you know, you hear everybody saying, oh, launch a private label product and set a Shopify page up. Guys, don't do it. I know people are making money on it, but it's not a good return on their investment, because they're spending so much time on one Shopify page. And then what do you drive customers there through Facebook traffic, and they go to a website with one product? That looks janky, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe you're selling stuff, but in that amount of energy that you've spent setting that up, you could have had another product on Amazon that's actually churning out a higher ROI and more sales and more brand recognition on that massive platform. So spend some time building out a catalog and a brand before you try to take it off Amazon and spend that amount of time. I was talking to a guy yesterday who was talking about Rakuten and Bonanza and Walmart. Like, if you have a private label product, why would you do that? The sales are dismal compared to Amazon, and you're going to spend so much time managing those platforms and trying to rank on those platforms. If you'd spend half that amount of energy in just getting a second product up, there's a lot more money in your pocket. Now you're getting closer to building that catalog that you can actually become platform agnostic, meaning you're not putting all your faith in one platform in Amazon, because, you know, we can't be doing that. Like, it's kind of scary, right? So that's it's kind of part of my soapbox. I'll step down a second and we can catch up. I see you making notes, so I'm sure we got some stuff to talk about.
I do, yeah. Sorry, I'm making a ton of notes. There's a ton here, and I'm going to try to write this out for folks who want to read it as well. You know, that's fantastic. So let's talk about this. I've never really thought about looking elsewhere. You know, of course, because Jungle Scout and things like that are in our face all the time as in the Amazon community. Now, let's say that I do find something on Etsy, or I see okay, so I'm a sucker for a Facebook ad, and I buy stuff, and a lot of times it's junk, but there's got to be some demand there, and if it's not on Amazon, that would be a great idea, especially if I can make it better. So if I do that, if I find that, how much capital am I looking to invest in, and what do I need to do if Alibaba is so full of scams and things like that?
Well, that's really tough. It depends on the product. Are we talking about electronics? Are we talking about handcrafted stuff? There's really no rhyme or reason no average to that. There are products that we're launching a product that just got through with its factory inspection in China. We had to buy 2,000 units. It's going to be really expensive. But there's other stuff that we can get in and literally buy 100 units and get them made in Central America. Or we're launching a new thing that I'm personally having made in Central America with 20 units. Right. Wow. So we can gauge that and stuff. So it just all depends. There's a lot of stuff, guys, that you can get from the USA. Sometimes people are focused on China so much they forget that there is actually good products to be manufactured here that are competitive. I had a guy contact me today who's got a sourcing project, and literally he was like, by the time I went to China and the shipping and the type of material is really hard to export and import. He's like, but I found a local community that makes this stuff. And I'm like, oh, wow. There you go. Now it's made in the USA. I actually have products that are made in the USA that are private labeled. And, you know, guys, put that in your title. This sucker's made in the USA. This is, you know, locally sourced, you know, American grown, whatever. And people buy the hound out of that stuff. But because it is so far outside the mainstream teaching of how to do private label, a lot of your competition isn't even looking at those options. So it gives you a way to set yourself apart, fly under the radar, and start doing some pretty big things non-traditionally.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. You know, we go back and touch on brand story and having things made in the U.S. There's a brand of jeans, and they're expensive, but they're sourced and made in the USA. They're actually made here in Ohio, where I'm at, and they're hand stitched. They're called 1776, I think. You know, but everything is local. Everything is made by these moms in a factory right here in Ohio, and they sell a ton of jeans. So yeah, that's fascinating. What are some ways for us to, you know, without of course giving away any secret sauce or anything like that? What are some ways for us to find those manufacturers, find those outlets to get products sourced? And then what are some of the qualifying questions we need to ask to make sure we're not going to get hosed?
Again, it's a really broad question that depends on a lot of things. So let me talk about a few different areas. There are still things, most things are still best to be manufactured in China. Of course, I have a cheat sheet because I have my own sourcing company. So what we did, and I'll give you this as an option, what we determined is there are a lot of people that are do-it-yourselfers. They don't need a full sourcing service. They don't need a full sourcing agent. They just need a little help. So what we did is we actually, with Hickory Flats, built some a la carte sourcing services where we just do little bits and pieces. So for instance, if you have a product and either you're not comfortable with Alibaba or you've been messing around on it for 3 weeks, haven't found anything, or you have a product that you're pretty certain is made or can be made in China, but you don't find it on Alibaba, then we have a product called Supplier Search, where literally you fill out this big long survey, we get all this information, we build a profile of what you're looking for, and we start getting on the phone from our Chinese office. And we're calling manufacturers that don't even have emails. They might not have anybody English speaking, but we're getting down raw, down and dirty to someone that can manufacture this thing, which is great, right? More barriers of entry for you, less, you know, likely to your competition catching. But then, you know, we make sure that you will be able to communicate with them. So even if they don't have English email, they can communicate through WeChat or QQ or something like that. Or if you tell me, hey, Tim, we need someone with an English-speaking sales rep, we can do that too. And it's crazy how many items that I find and I look for, like on Alibaba, as part of a validation tool. You know, I go to Alibaba and I search for this product. And if there's like nobody selling that product, I'm getting excited, right? But it's crazy that our local team in China, our staff, or my partner over there, can find it so easily, even though it's not on there. So don't think that everything in China is on Alibaba. There's a lot of ways to search. A lot of people talk about that 1688 or 1866, I can't remember, I'm half dyslexic, website. Understand that's no different than Alibaba. It's still just a business directory, but in Chinese. So because it's in Chinese, sometimes the prices are lower on that than they are on Alibaba because they're trying to compete more competitively domestically. But it's still just a business directory. People don't actually sell that as a platform. You know, people think that Alibaba is a sales platform. It's not. It's a phone book. If you want to do some sourcing in the U.S., guys, just start Google manufacturer for this or this, or you have to think outside the box. If you've got a metal item that obviously you can't search, you know, someone to manufacture this because you found this, you know, on Pinterest as an idea or you know, a life hack blog or something. Start looking for just manufacturers that can produce that same type of material. So let's say you have an item that's aluminum, you know, a widget that's aluminum. Find an aluminum CNC shop or, you know, a lathe shop or something locally and go in and just talk to them and say, I'm trying to look at this to make this. Can you find this or can you make this for me? And they'll tell you yes or no. Once you kind of determine just a little bit of research on how a product is made, then you can actually search for manufacturers that are outsourcing that service through a website called thomasnet.com, THOMASNET.com, and it is essentially kind of like the Alibaba of the US, but instead of selling products, it's just a business directory. So if I wanted to do concrete patio planters, I've never actually searched that, so maybe that's like the one thing that's wrong. But I think that if you went to Thomasnet and typed in concrete planters or concrete urns or concrete whatever, you'll get tons of factories in the US that make those products. And then you can start, working with them, calling them up on the phone and say, this is what I'm trying to do. Are you right for me? And you may have to call several places before you hone it down, but it's not too bad. And a lot of people are trying to do stuff in like supplements and stuff that's really hard to import because of FDA. We use a U.S. manufacturer. You can usually get smaller batches. It's faster. They're already FDA certified. Like I have people that want to get essential oils from China. I'm like, guys, the essential oils are the same price in the U.S. They're already FDA approved for the manufacturer, and you can have them in a week. Like just do it here, right? Even custom formulations on like topicals. So think like if you wanted shampoo with unicorn glitter in it, right? Mm-hmm. Don't get your shampoo with unicorn glitter made in China. Find a shampoo manufacturer here that can dump some glitter in a vat. And then you don't have those problems with the topicals and the importing and the exporting and FDA and all that stuff, because all that stuff is certified here already. So U.S. I of course like third world countries. There are certain products that we get manufactured like in Guatemala, and a lot of them are your wood, your textiles, your leathers, kind of the more artisanal handmade stuff. And those you usually have to have boots on the ground to find. It's a little bit harder. I know a lot of people have contacts in Mexico. A lot of good leather comes out of Mexico, and there's a lot of people who knows, their old neighbor Sam who moved to Mexico, or, we support a missionary at church that's down in Mexico or something. Start making some phone calls, get on LinkedIn. If they can speak English and they're a business sales rep or something down in Mexico that can speak English, they probably have a English LinkedIn account, and get a hold of them and say, hey, can you help me find this? Can your company manufacture this for us? And it's a little bit more work, but guys, anything that's worth doing well is worth putting in the time and effort for. It's going to take that work. So get out of your minds that private label is a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not a fad. It's not, this quick little game you play. It's not something you can do the easy way. You're going to have to put in the work. But when you do it, you have those tremendous success stories, guys. I was with I've known somebody just online for maybe a month, and actually got to meet her yesterday in real life. She came up and met me, gave me a hug in New Orleans at the Boost conference, and her story is incredible. She found a product that was, needed. She had it custom manufactured in China several years ago, and didn't realize she was doing as well as she was. And then she got a call to be on Good Morning America, and they wanted to feature her product. And then she got in Forbes. So Forbes ran a big article on her, how she found this product, and then she's built a catalog around it, and she's rocking and rolling. And she didn't go at private label easy way, but she found just this really simple need. She didn't have to engineer anything, nothing. She basically, or not technically engineer it, said, I want to take this product, mix it with this product, and can that be done? Found a manufacturer for it, sure enough. And now she's, living a good life, living in Manhattan, taking care of herself with her little online business and getting more notoriety every day. But she would have never gotten that success if she tried to put a sticker on somebody else's crap that she got off Alibaba. Never would have happened. I can go through mountains of stories like that. So I guess that kind of answers your question of different places to go. But how do you know if you're getting hosed? You don't. Use gut. In China, if you're afraid you're going to get hosed, we also have one of our sourcing services called Supplier Scope. And what it is we basically audit your transactions. So whether it's actually something you're purchasing or something you're thinking about purchasing. So the scenario would play out like you've contacted a manufacturer. You're thinking about getting this item, producing them. You've got a pro forma invoice for whatever, $12,000 to buy this first set. You're not really sure if you're comfortable with it. So what you do is you hire us. It's a simple one-click service you pay for, and you're basically paying for just our time. And what we do is we take your invoice, and then we take all the information from it, your pricing, your supplier information. We generate a report for you, and we'll say this is a factory, or no, it's not a factory, it's actually a reseller. And then we'll actually call them and try to get a quote on something similar, but not exact, so they don't know we're connected. And it's not uncommon for someone who's got a quote of $4 a unit. We come back, we're like, hey, they quoted us $2 a unit for the same order size. Well, now if that's a $12,000 order, just saved you $6,000, right? Because now what you can do is you can come back and you can negotiate down. You might not be able to come quite to 2 because they might charge a little more because it has to be an English salesman, or they have to, do a little more hassle or something. but tremendous amount of savings. Or we come back and say, hey, the equivalent of the Chinese Better Business Bureau said these guys are scammers. Or they're not even in China. They're actually in Taiwan, but they're saying they're in Guangzhou. Like, this is a problem. So if you think in China that you want some auditing, you can get us to take care of that for you with our service supplier scope. And then basically putting a microscope on your supplier. Or if you're already getting something produced in China, it's not uncommon for people to come to us and say, hey, we just want you to audit this. They send us some paperwork. We check all their stuff. We check their credentials and say, hey, everything's good. And of course, that's not a waste of money for you, because now you can sleep better at night, and you know that you don't need to spend time trying to research them and trying to get competitive quotes. You just know you're good. You can move on to the next product and have that peace of mind and extra time saved. Or we might come to you and say, hey, they're completely ripping you off. They're not who they say they are, you know, yada, 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 which is something that you definitely need to know. And then, of course, always inspect what you expect. So one of our bigger services, we do product inspections for private label in China. We literally send in auditors when they're almost finished, or they are finished but you haven't made the final payment. And we're flipping cases over and pulling products out of the bottom and weighing them and measuring them and taking pictures of every thumbprint and scratch and detail and measuring the boxes and scanning the barcodes to make sure they come out right. And that's extremely important, extremely, extremely important, because if you're not doing that, you could get stuck with a lot of product that's wrong, or there's a little issue that could have easily been taken care of there but wasn't because you didn't know to catch that. We tell people to get their product inspections prior to making the final payment, because then you've done what's called, I didn't coin the phrase, but the phrase is knocking up your supplier, right? So you've got 2,000 units of your product in their warehouse with your label on it and your branding and your variation, and you've paid them a 30% deposit, and you're not paying them the rest. They got to get their money. So when you come in, have an inspection, there's a problem, now they're kind of obligated to fix the problem or not get paid. So make sure you're doing that. And it's insane how many people are buying products from China without getting inspections or getting audits, and there's a lot of money on the line. Here in the U.S., obviously, if you're dealing with a manufacturer here, that's easy. Get on the phone with them. Get on a Skype call with them, FaceTime, whatever. Generally, if you're dealing with someone in your own region, your own country, your own language, you can get a good idea if they're slimy or not. Central America, places like that, you just have to make sure to get samples. Everything's sampled, everything's documented, and make sure that whoever is your boots on the ground person there is someone reliable and trustworthy that knows they're going to be looking out for your best interest, which is super important.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great advice. I know we're about 45 minutes in. I know Tim's got about 15 or 14 minutes left. So if you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat. I guess what haven't I hit on yet that you think is important that people aren't getting elsewhere?
Oh gosh. I'm trying to determine. So the best places to find those products, all right, new products to sell on Amazon to private label. I can't really go deep into detail, but you can find some other content I've got out there, or subscribe to Private Label Legion's email list or Facebook group, and we're putting out more and more of that content that'll hit on this. Etsy, I talked about. Pinterest. Pinterest is a bragging board. People literally put pictures up of new products, and they're pinned to the top based on popularity. And there's a lot of items every day that I could find on Pinterest that's not on Amazon yet. Life hack blogs, right? People are creating these cool little inventions, these cool little gizmos that are simple because they're usually making them in their house on their kitchen table, which means we can have them mass-produced very easily, but they serve a purpose, right? This problem doesn't have a solution, so I made one. So just make a solution to the problem. Super easy. I've literally invented stuff out of cardboard that's selling right now on Amazon that I found in the Life Hack blog, and I'm the only person anywhere doing it. Nobody. Been selling it for a year and a half. There's not a single product like it out there. Found it in the Life Hack blog. Killer. The other thing is get off your butt. Quit going to Amazon.com. Go to these other websites, and if you want to take it one step further, go elsewhere. Go to trade shows. And I'm not talking, guys, about going to ASD and trying to find wholesale accounts. I know I'm a little bit cynical. I know there's people that disagree with me, but quit spending time going to ASD and trying to get wholesale accounts for more saturated listings, more saturated products. Spend that time going to a niche trade show. Go to a hunting and fishing expo. Go to a sewing expo. Go to a lawn and garden expo. Go somewhere, because there's a lot of products that are not on e-com that are being created by people that maybe they're trying to go the traditional route of brick and mortar, or not on e-com, and it's not even a protected product, or you're just getting information about those niches and finding products that are in demand of those niches, or you're finding products that that people there are looking for. You're walking around, people are, looking for something. You're overhearing people talking, then you can bring something to the market. Those trade shows are phenomenal. My absolute favorite way to get into private label from scratch and ignore all the hype and fast track it is to go to China. That's literally how I got started, was seat time in an airplane. And it was a lot of effort, and I screwed up and made a lot of mistakes because, I was going with the wrong tactics. I was going with a lot of the wrong information and, dealing with Chinese mafia guys and, just all sorts of stuff. But also, I didn't know how to process information correctly to build a product. So I would go look at products but not know how to research it or not know how to actually find something that wasn't saturated. So what we've done since, maybe in the past couple of years, is I've started taking people to China. And that's probably one of the coolest things that people are super excited about in our business, Hickory Flats, is we do educational sourcing retreats. So what we do is we take my years of experience, mistakes, and we take my local team there and they're not even affiliated with us, just other service providers, and we put together a completely handheld sourcing trip to China. And it's educational too. So what we do is they're only small groups. We only take 25 people at a time so that we can manage them. And what we do is we educate you before you go on the methods and the tactics and what you need to be pre-researching so that you're not walking in blind. We spend 8 days in China. We go sightseeing. We get over your jet lag. We cover all your expenses, your hotels, your travel, your translators, your personal assistants, everything. And then we go to the largest single market in the world, which is the Yiwu Fujian market, where there's literally 100,000 vendors under one roof. Wow. 100,000 vendors, one roof. I tell people you're going to see millions of products a day, and people say that's not true. And they go to China with me and they go, oh crap, Tim, it's lunch and I saw millions of products. I'll say, yeah, I know you did. And Yiwu is really cool. I made a lot of mistakes there, like the fidget spinner. So this is an example of items that are out there before they make it big. But like 3 years ago, I'm walking around Yiwu, with, my head up my tail, not knowing what to do, completely lost, just overwhelmed with the information, didn't know how to process it. There's all these people playing with these little fidget spinners. And they're like, oh, this is so good. You need to buy this fidget spinner. It's popular. And, of course, I go back to my hotel, check Jungle Scout. Well, there's no sales. This thing must be terrible. Well, if I knew what I knew now and I knew the methods and tactics that I employ now, I would have checked search volume, realized there's really none selling on Amazon, and I would have bought up about 6 boatloads of these things, and I'd be on a beach somewhere, sitting on $20 million because I was one of the first ones in fidget spinners. Made the same mistake a year later with the magnet tiles, the magnet tile blocks for kids. Mm-hmm. So I see those. I'm like, these are awesome. And I'm playing with them. Like I keep going booth to booth, and they've got them already in retail ready packages, just ready for a brand name to be printed on it and low MOQs. And I'm playing with them. My son would love these. I even buy some stamps, take them back to my kid. But I checked Amazon. I'm like, well, nobody's selling these. They must be crap products. Well, then 9 months later, it was like the booming thing for 2017, Christmas, Q4, major blow up. I'm like, oh, I'm so dumb for not having caught on to this. So basically now what we do is we fixed all that, and we employ a lot of the things that I teach in consulting and stuff, and then literally take you over there with the mindset and that education, let you look at millions of products, find items, and then teach you how to source them long-term, the logistical stuff. So people are coming over, and in a week, they're learning what took me 2 or 3 years to figure out, and they're getting launch information, not launch like I was talking about where you're inorganically launch this, but basically just setting up your listing and building out your brand. And man, people love that because now we're fast tracking it, and we're literally finding items in China that aren't on Amazon yet.
That's awesome.
I've got a guy in Atlanta. I was hanging out with him last night, actually. He's got this product that I think is going to just absolutely kill it. And it's not even on Alibaba. You can't find it.
Oh, wow.
It's one factory in China that makes these things. Quality's good. It's jam up, and you can't even find it on Alibaba. So even when he starts selling well, people won't be able to track it down because he literally went with us to China, used the methods that I teach, found this product. So what's the opportunity value there, right? If he has one good private label product that sells well, what is that worth? $10,000, $20,000, $30,000? So now I've got people that want to go on these trips because they're like, hey, if I find one product, plus you add in the education, and I bring in masterminds and networking opportunities, and we pay for your hotels and all that stuff, then the price that we charge for that is easily a good investment as long as you find one product, which really isn't that difficult if you have kind of half a clue. So Lisa, how long have I been selling on Amazon? About 4 years now, I believe. I'm trying to catch these before they go down. Yeah, about 4 years. Jonathan, Helium 10, the high monthly. Yes. Jonathan, is it worth the cost? I would say so, because information is power, right? So I buy like the mid-tier. Helium 10 is the one that I'm subscribed to. And if you have basically one product that you can find on that, what's the cost of success? You find one product. Is it worth it? $100 a month? Absolutely. Plus Helium 10 has so much other time saving stuff. They track for counterfeiters and they do, a mountain of stuff for you. And if you value your time at $25 an hour, if Helium 10 can save you 4 hours a month, it's well worth it. But I absolutely love it. And then I actually have a promo code for that. Have you got a promo code for that, Chris?
I don't. No, go ahead and drop it.
If anybody's interested, I actually don't remember what it is, but I'll send it to you and you can email it out if you want to.
Yeah,
to any attendees of the webinar. So once we get off here and I can remember what that stupid code is, it's somewhere in my email. It's a promo code, which I think is good for 50% off any plan, which is awesome, Jonathan. John, do I run any course or mastermind groups? Nah. I just get on here and talk about stuff for free. I'm involved in some mastermind groups, like that I give content and stuff to. What I would consider my mastermind group and my course are the sourcing trips. It's literally immersion. So, a month before the trip, we start learning, we start teaching, we have, actual interactive webinars we're teaching people specifically, and then we literally spend 7 or 8 days in China, depending on how you count the time change. It's like 8 days in China, boots on the ground. We're stuck together, small group setting. It's myself, it's my partner in China, it's our staff. And then we literally bring masterminds. So like we've got a trip coming up in August where I've got some heavy hitters in the industry. They do a lot of private label coaching and some of the big groups and stuff like that, and they're coming as our mastermind contributors. So that would be the closest thing to course or mastermind that I run. I know we've talked about this China trip. If any of you are interested in going to China, find me on Facebook, Tim Jordan, and send me a private message, and I can send you information on that. We've got, testimonial videos and information videos and, exactly how that works. If any of you are interested, I can definitely get you the information. How long did it take you to go from feeling like you were completely new to feeling like you really got how to make things really work for you selling on Amazon? That changes every day. Some days I don't know what I'm doing. Sometimes I feel like I'm completely lost in the weeds, like when Amazon changes algorithms and changes review stuff. I had a jump start, and most of you have a jump start too if you're following what Chris is doing, because you're already in RA and OA, so you're not starting from scratch, or you're in wholesale or something. So knowing what you're doing on Amazon is a little bit of a subjective term, because there are people that know a mountain of private label, but they wouldn't have a clue how to walk into a retail store and do RA. I would say that it took me a solid 6 months before I felt comfortable to start exploring, and not exploring, but testing and kind of trying new experiences and kind of putting myself out there, where I felt like I had a good enough grasp of taking some risks, right? And some of those risks were bombs. Some of my first private label products I did the wrong way. I got in saturated stuff and I'm stuck with bull crap that I can't get rid of. Or one of my first really successful private label products, I did not understand what counterfeit was. And what I'd done is I'd found a product that was cranking it on Amazon, like 4,000 units a month. And I found the factory. So I ordered the exact same product, and it was a dead ringer match, but I didn't have the same packaging with that little logo on it. And I didn't know any different. I was brand new to this. So I brought in like 800 units air-shipped and sold all 800 of them in like 4 or 5 days. Wow. I was like, holy cow, I'm going to be a millionaire tomorrow. It was too easy. And then, of course, I got my account shut down, got suspended for 6 weeks, had to hire someone to get me unsuspended. So I've gone through those growing pains, Lisa, I promise. And I kind of have a suspicion you're asking that because maybe you're in that situation where you're wondering how long it's going to take you, or if you should be crawling out of the weeds yet if you've already begun. I promise you I'm in the weeds every day, because information changes, new product changes. I'm learning so much every day that sometimes I feel like I'm just completely lost. But the truth is I was good enough at it pretty quick that I was able to quit a full-time government job, and I'm enjoying life more now than I ever have. So, that timing is different for everybody. But what I found is most people that are spending time watching webinars and, podcasts and learning is they probably know more than they think they do. And when you start talking to them and digging down, that I'm like, hey, you act like get off your tail and just do it. You know what you're doing. You might mess up, but go ahead and launch that product, or go sourcing, or get that first wholesale contract. Just do it, because most people are stuck in this paralysis by overanalysis, which is, a very frustrating thing, and I completely understand it. But I think there's a lot more competency out there than people give themselves credit for. And I think that, you only live once, life is short. E-commerce is the future. The opportunity for entrepreneurs right now is greater than it has ever been. Ever. In the thousands of years of commerce and business, the opportunity presented in the past 7 or 8 years is greater than has ever been available in any short period of time like this in the history of man. So I think that makes a tremendous opportunity for us, and we need to be excited about it. We need to get jacked up, but we also need to step out and take that chance and get off our tails and just do it. Just make sure you're doing it the right way, and invest in people. Hire a consultant that really knows what they're doing. Find a mentor and trade time with them, because if you're not learning from other people's mistakes, I think you're missing out. That's one thing about these China teaching and sourcing trips that we do to help people find their first private label or expand the private label, is learn from my mistakes. Like, I can literally tell you all the dumb, boneheaded stuff I've done in China that's cost me tens of thousands of dollars, and now I can help you avoid that. So find people like myself or other people that you can learn from their mistakes and invest in yourself, because that's what it is. It's an investment in yourself to go out and do those types of things.
Absolutely. One thing that Tim just hit on that I think is super important is be willing to trade some of your time for other people's knowledge. When I first got started, I went as far as to offer to fly myself to someone's house, have them train me, and I would work for them. I told them I'd do anything, even cleaning toilets, to be able to learn what these people would know how to do, because shortening the learning curve is hugely important. Tim, I know it's 9 o'clock. I know that you've got another thing to run off to, so I don't want to. I know we could keep going, but I don't want to be disrespectful of your time.
Well, let's just schedule another one. We'll get on again in a few weeks.
That sounds great. We'll do that. Everybody, I appreciate you being here. Tim, I really appreciate you taking the time. I think this was an hour of fire, and there's going to be a replay on YouTube. There's going to be a replay in FBA Today, and links and everything, so you guys can find everything Tim does. And we'll definitely schedule another one so we can dive deeper on this topic in a couple weeks. Yeah,
and then I guess it was Jonathan was asking about that promo code for Helium 10. Chris, I'll send that to you in just a few minutes. When we get off here, let me dig it out of my email, and then you can blast it out to the webinar attendees or whoever you need to.
Yeah, sounds great. All right. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate you being here, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Take care.